My name is Ann Palmer. I am with the Johns Hopkins Center for Livable Future and the Food Policy Networks Project, and I just want to welcome you all to our discussion today. This is about community engagement for food policy councils in low density population areas. We all know that community engagement is pretty core to the work of food policy councils, and there are an increasing number of councils that are exploring ways to engage more intentionally with those affected by food system challenges. Councils in rural, peri-urban, and suburban areas have unique challenges to engagement, including working across larger geographic distances, and in some cases, multiple jurisdictional boundaries with smaller populations. CLF, or the Food Policy Networks Project, welcomes you to this conversation today, and we are going to address the challenges with community engagement in areas where it's seemingly harder to reach communities. So I know most of you know who we are, but we're going to do just a brief introduction just for those who may be joining us and may be new to this world. We are an interdisciplinary center at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Our work focuses on the intersection of diet, environment, food production, and public health. The Food Policy Networks Project is one of our projects, and we've been around since 2013 with the goal of building the capacity of food system stakeholders to reform local, state, regional, and tribal food systems through effective public policy. We do that with training, sharing best practices, networking with other food policy councils and leaders, and providing food policy council resource materials. If you're not familiar with us, we encourage you to sign up, check out our website, Food Policy Networks, and sign up for the listserv to hear about future webinars. Supporting this call from our project are me, Ann Palmer, and Karen Bastarab, and Rachel Santo. We're going to be your facilitators and tech support. And I just want to point it out so you all know, one of the reason we actually even did this, one of the things we do is called curbside consulting. And in the course of a couple of weeks, we realized two of us had a curbside consulting situation where we really didn't know how to advise people. And it was about this topic around community engagement and lower density population areas. And we thought this would be a great opportunity to have a conversation because we don't really have good resources and we don't really have answers. And so why not bring people together and sort of do this kind of brainstorming and listen to each other and share. So this is, we've done a couple of conversations with different topics. So it's kind of experimental for us, but we're really excited. I think it's been a great learning opportunity the few times that we have done it. So I am going to just give you a breakdown. We're going to first hear from the Southwest Michigan Local Food Council, and then the San Mateo Food Systems Alliance about their experiences with community engagement in rural and suburban areas. After which we've invited Sharon Thornberry from the Oregon Food Bank to share about her work on community engagement in rural areas of Oregon. We invite you to stay to the end. We're going to do some breakout rooms and have some discussion, and we will not make you report back on the breakouts. We'll just have like one bigger question that we can all respond to. You are all muted, but we invite you, because it's a discussion, we are going to invite you to unmute and share your story throughout the conversation. You can also use the chat box. If you'd like to right now, you can go ahead and put your name and where you're from in the chat box so we can all get a sense for who's here. If you're attending by phone, hit *9 if you want to raise your hand to ask a question and *6 to unmute. And I'm going to now just give you a brief bio about the different groups that we're going to hear from. So the Southwest Michigan Local Food Council is a collective of advocates that takes evidence-based actions toward the development of an equitable regional food system that values local farmers and entrepreneurs. They envision a local food system that is continually improving to address issues of both food equity and the quality of life in Southwest Michigan. Speaking for the Southwest Michigan Local Food Council is Dawn Marie Smith. The San Mateo Food System Alliance seeks to support, enhance, and maintain an enduring and independent food system that is economically viable, environmentally sound, and socially just, that connects people to agriculture and enhances the health of all residents of San Mateo County. As the first food system alliance in California, founded in 2006, the group has sought to bring together all the parts of the local food system. The alliance has worked hard to hear and understand the different perspectives on San Mateo food and farming, from the views of coastside farmers and fishermen working to maintain their livelihoods despite pressure on land and resources, to Bayside community service workers struggling against poverty, malnutrition, and food insecurity. This is also the first food system alliance in California to seat both the county's agricultural commissioner and the public health officer. Speaking for the alliance is Jared Johnson. And then finally, to end hunger in Oregon and Southwest Washington, the Oregon Food Bank works across systems to help people access nutritious food today. And they build community power to eliminate the root causes of hunger for good. We are thrilled to have Sharon Thornberry with us today. I've known Sharon for many, many years, and is definitely one of the leaders and bright lights in the community food system world. Sharon is currently working for the Columbia Gorge Food Bank, which is a branch of the Oregon Food Bank that serves 3 diverse and rural counties alongside the Columbia River east of Portland. So I am going to stop there and we will let Dawn get started.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for that introduction, and hello, everyone. As Anne mentioned, as well as I put it in the chat, I'm Dawn Marie Smith, and I am representing the Southwest Michigan Local Food Council. I'm staff on the Food Council, and like many of you that are probably on the call, we all wear many, many hats, and that is just one of my hats. My other major responsibility is I'm director of Be Healthy Berrien. Be Healthy Berrien is a collective impact cohort focused on reducing and eliminating obesity in the county of Berrien. So one of the counties of the 3 that Southwest Michigan Local Food Council supports. So I thought I would take about my time and sort of give you a little bit about our area and our region, maybe a little bit of where we are as a council, and then just talk about some of the questions that we have pertaining to sort of how we move forward. So about our area, we are in the south. I'm going to do the little Michigan thing. So we are in the Southwest Michigan corner, so right by Chicago, right along the water. And essentially our 3 counties, our population is around 280,000. But the 3 counties really vary in regard to demographic characteristics. So from 51,000 to 75,000 to 155,000. So very different counties, and then very different demographics within those counties. Poverty level is between 11 and 14%. And we obviously have some higher concentrated areas. And then our ALICE percentage is generally between 23 to 26%. So that sort of just gives you a little setting for sort of our current position. All of that said, Southwest Michigan is very unique, and I feel like we are this wonderland of agriculture, and that we have so much abundance and diverse agriculture capabilities here. And what I mean by abundance and diverse is that we grow a lot, but we also have a large variety, everything from beans to cherries to peaches to blueberries to, squash. So we have this abundance and we have this diversity in our food system, but yet it's not really reaching and realized across our region in terms of the food system and how we could benefit as a community, and really what it comes down to is food access. So a little bit about our council structure. We are a 10-member council, and we are pretty new. The council was developed as part of Be Healthy Berrien's strategy, because we identified that a council was needed in this region. And so we're about 4 years in, so a pretty fresh council. And it's made up of healthcare workers, public health, farmers, higher education, nonprofit, and we have 1 community advocate. So we're pretty limited in, we're only 10 members, and we're diverse in those 10 members. And right below that, we have a structure. Our structure is what we call our working groups, and they're essentially our doers for our strategy. And they are essentially working on our objectives and strategies to help improve the food system. So where we are today, and I'm hoping, well, I hope not, that you guys are facing the challenges that we are facing, and hopefully it's a little more positive. But in looking at 2022, there were 4 council leaders that did a reflection exercise to unpack the challenges that we've been faced in this past year. And there were quite a few key themes, a lot of them, quite frankly, but we chose to focus in on one, and that is engagement. But our key themes were strategic plan scale, council structure, bandwidth, overworked, convening during a pandemic, equity, and leadership. And just like everyone else across the globe, we're faced with fatigue and capacity, and we're just trying to figure out how do we get out of this. And it is a pivotal moment for us. And we feel like we are optimistic in what the future can bring. And so how do we use this as a pivotal point to move forward? What we've also recognized is that workforce challenges that we're all facing are also showing up in volunteering community engagement. And what I mean is that our working groups that are essentially the doers have really paused a lot of the work, and we're not really making any progress on our plan. So, how do we move forward with that? Like, what do we do with that? And how do we unpack that? And so our focus in 2022, at least in the first half, until we can sort of rebuild and re-engage, is really to strengthen bonds and connections with our council members, with our working groups, and essentially our community. And, one of the next steps that we have is in December, we have a council meeting, the 10 council members, where we're just going to sort of reconnect as a organization and ask, why is the work important to you? And what are your expectations from this work? Just to reconnect and sort of reground us so that we can sort of start thinking through how we want to approach 2022. So really when it comes down to is that we have questions on whether or not we should focus solely on engagement and maybe develop 1 to 2 objectives specifically based on the council's capacity and really just take that under our arms and try to solve for that. Or do we maybe select one project from the plan that does have a little bit of momentum and use that project as an opportunity to re-engage at the council level, the working group level, and the community level? And really, we're just open for to share, and Sharon and the other experts here on the call is, any approaches or strategies to really help some of our engagement challenges. As challenging as this world is, people are starting to finally realize why the food system is so important. And we have this beautiful untapped agricultural region that we feel is just at this peak and opportunist time where we can maybe leapfrog forward and be able to build on what this rich region does offer us. And so that's a little bit about our council. And Sharon, I know my questions are 10,000 feet, but hopefully that some of the things that I've challenged or some of the things that I shared are similar to maybe what others are faced in their work. And I'm looking forward to the breakout sessions. So thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. Jarrett, we're going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. And Dawn, yes, some of your concerns are definitely things we experience, but my name is Jared Johnson, though most folks just call me JJ. I'm the Senior Manager of Policy and External Relations at Optera and the manager of San Mateo Food System Alliance's Policy Committee. And Optera has been the managing organization of the Alliance for the past year. And that's also long as I have known the Alliance. Just to tell you a little bit more about San Mateo for folks who are unfamiliar. Now this is coming from an East Coaster point of view, not a lifetime California native. But San Mateo is right underneath San Francisco County, west of the Bay. About 70% of our land is open space, but there's also lots of suburban area. San Mateo County has a population of around 750,000. And the alliance itself was founded in 2006, actually, one of the first food system alliances established in California. And the group was brought together to bring parts of the local food system in terms of the processing, distribution, give retailers and producers a space to talk and to be able to collaborate, and has done a great job in kind of fulfilling that mission. Though this year we have been trying to think about our goals for collective impact, especially during this time of getting out of COVID. There's been a lot of disruptions in the supply chain. There's been lots of issues of people going into food insecurity. And we've been trying to figure out the best way to tackle these issues. And through that process, we are running into issues that lots of organizations run into, not being sure we have the right people in the room, not being sure if folks have enough time to commit to the initiatives we want to commit to. So we had an organization come and do a analysis and set up a retreat so we can talk about our collective impact model and what that means to us. We identified what people weren't in the room in terms of what cultures weren't there, what groups in terms of what industries may not be represented in our group. We talked about what each of our partners wanted from the FSA. And that's something we have been struggling with, is how to work as a single entity that is useful for many members. I don't know exactly how many members we have, but it's definitely over a couple dozen. And all of us have different reasons why we joined the San Mateo Food System Alliance. So we have questions of how to work on issues that satisfy all of our needs, but also work in our local areas. I have been working principally on our policy initiatives. We've been trying to figure out how to work and open up some more urban spaces for agriculture, and also make it easier for local growers to make extra money through using their land. And I would love in this conversation to learn more about how to have more conversations with those local growers and make sure they're in the room with us while we're trying to think of these solutions. That's one of the things that I think a lot of folks struggle with, is we're trying to find solutions for folks, for people who are not always in the room. And to add on to that, we have been looking at ways to help producers also connect with the consumers where they're at. There's been lots of, we call food hubs, growing up in Alameda County. Alameda County is across the bay from San Mateo, and they've been able to coordinate little regional food hubs where folks who are in food, who are on CalFresh, that's one of our food scarcity programs, can go and get connected to growers looking to sell their products. And they have little hubs, I think they have about 5 of them across the region, and have been very successful in that effort. And we've been trying to figure out how we can do some of those practices here in San Mateo. And that's another thing we've been trying to figure out. How do we leverage the learnings across the county, leverage all of the work that is going on in different cities? The San Mateo Food Systems Alliance has been also working alongside a larger initiative called Homegrown Bay Area as an initiative to try to work with the 111 101 cities and towns across the Bay Area to reform the regional food system around pillars of good food for all, pillars of zero waste, pillars of fair trade and equity. So I'd love to be able to kind of use this as an opportunity to just talk about the different concerns we have in each of our local regions and be able to combine our learnings together to figure out how to address some of these issues of being able to engage populations in both suburban and low density areas.
Thanks, Jared. Sharon. You're on mute, Sharon.
Thank you, Anne. This is interesting. It's interesting how I was thinking about this yesterday and what could the questions possibly be. And I could have almost written the answers at that point. Dawn is right about the fact that we are a very interesting point in time where people are very more aware of the food system than any time that I've been in this work, because they see empty store shelves. They're looking for healthy food. They can't necessarily get it. They don't know how to get it or who provides it in their community. And at the same time, our producers are struggling from a lot of different directions. They can't get food processed. There's not somebody to buy it from them. They haven't had the right markets. And what I find very interesting is that some of the farmers I've had connection with across Oregon have never had better local customer bases than they have today. And that's because of some community building work that's been done. I know of one farmer in South Wasco County who cannot keep her farm stand full. Everything disappears as quickly as she puts it out. And that's because they've worked to build a local connection. And there's a real disconnect in our food system because food policy for a family or person begins where they acquire, prepare, and eat food. And food policy for food production begins in a corporate boardroom far too often. And so there's no there's no connect between the two places, except for what is people want to market. And what we lack in our local food systems is that strength of marketing that the global food system has. So how do we build that marketing? How do we make that happen? And that's about building local connections. Oregon Food Bank began a program in 2000. Well, in 2008, we started with a different kind of community food assessment model. And I had participated in things with Community Food Security Coalition. I'd gone to USDA week-long workshops on how to do food assessments. And we ended up with what I called thunk books. We had a lot of data, but we didn't know what to do with them. And we didn't know how they related to the real people in our community. So we devised another plan, and actually Center for Living has touted our food assessment process before, of grassroots community food assessment. And what that means is we look at quantitative data instead of qualitative data. We use the qualitative data as a base, but then we start to interview. And we interview consumers. We figure out who all the key places are in the food system. And we've just finished one for the region that I'm currently in. And we start to look at, we do interviews with consumers. We do interviews with low income folks. We do interviews with food pantry recipients, the healthcare folks. We talk to the farmers. We talk to the people, especially the people running small stores, those kinds of things. So we start to look at that data and we put together a picture of what the food system looks like at the grassroots level. And from that grassroots level, we also figure out where the matching places are. How does that network begin to lace together? And we also, in 2009, introduced FEAST, which is Food, Education, Agriculture Solutions Together. Don't have to call it that. It's about a community process of having a discussion and bringing together a diverse group of people to talk about the food system. And when we started doing those, we would bring 20, 30, sometimes, well, I've done ones that had 100 people in the room. And literally, there were people in the room who didn't know they had local farmers. And there were local farmers that didn't know there was a food pantry next door. And there were doctors who didn't know about local farms, where they could be saying, oh, if you need healthy food, or a diabetes educator that didn't know where to send somebody. So those grassroots discussions have built an awful lot of connection between the community, the purchaser, consumer, and the local food supply. And it's also helped us identify weaknesses in the local food supply, and places that people could fill in. What are the gaps, and how do they need? And Jared, you talked about food hubs. That's small local food hubs are one of those gaps. And sometimes that food hub can be as simple as a country store, and there aren't many left. They're disappearing fast, but a rural store, or one that's outside of the urban fringe or the suburban fringe, providing a place for farmers to come on a Friday afternoon and sell their goods, and everybody knowing that's where they're going to come. Doesn't have to be complicated. I think that's the other thing. In low density areas, you're going to have to take less complex solutions to these kinds of things. We do have the contradiction of abundance and diversity versus access. We have to figure out those gaps. And they're different in different regions, but some of the techniques for that can be the same. Let's see, I'm looking down here. How do you engage? One of our key pieces in working with a community, or even in tiny communities, I've worked with tiny mountain communities. It's about finding out who the gatekeepers are in that place and getting them engaged in your work. And I think the other thing I talk about is that in the years that I've been doing this, it's become a lot more complex because the cost of living has gone up, wages have remained stagnant, and the cost of housing has gone through the roof. So people are, it's a more complex, and transportation, especially in rural areas, may be non-existent to get to a grocery store. And we also work in areas where it can be over 100 miles to a grocery store. That's not unusual for us. In fact, where I work right now, I have communities that are nearly 100 miles to a grocery store of any size. And the rural stores also have issues. So we did a rural grocery report several years ago and started identifying, and we have rural grocery survey, and we work with folks at Kansas State University to identify the issues of those rural stores. And they've moved that work forward tremendously since then. And I also did FEAST training for them. So there's a lot to be learned from talking to your rural stores and analyzing their challenges with buying local food. If you want to create local markets, you need to talk to the stores that are there. No matter how tiny they are, they may be a place to have a local market. Jared, I'm not as familiar with your area as I wish I were. And I think that's one of the things I'd say to anybody that's doing this work, spend some time. And I'm going to send out a 2-page, it's a 2 or 3-page handout after this with a lot of my tips. It's not going to be complicated, but it's a lot of my tips. And one of the things is to get to know the area before you're going to do the work, learn about the area. But that may be, I mean, I've done things like went and sat in a coffee shop all day in a rural community and just talk to the people. I do some research ahead of time and say which one's the busiest. And I also find a coffee shop owner that's going to introduce me to everybody that comes through. But I spent time doing that. And so it pays off. It makes a huge difference. And that's even true in suburban communities. There are those places that are just the hub. And those are the kind of places to make connections. It takes time and it's effort, but it's really rewarding in the end. You will find that it helps. And I don't know how much longer you want me to talk because I don't want to cut short the.
So we had thought we were going to go into breakout rooms. We have 67 people on right now. I think what we want to do, at least for a little bit, and just see how this works, is to allow people to unmute themselves and raise their hands or put a question in the chat box for you all. And let's do that so we can all kind of benefit from this sort of collective space before we do breakout rooms, and let's see how that goes. So if you have any questions, please feel free to either put it in the chat box or you can unmute yourselves.
Sharon, can I put you on the spot on that?
Sure.
So I'm asking Jared to speak about the Micos. Can I
Okay.
put you on the spot, Jared?
Jared, did you hear the question?
No, I didn't hear the question.
Michael, can you repeat that?
Sure. Can I put you on the spot to speak about Micos?
Guess I'm unfamiliar.
I can speak about it then.
Sure.
So micro home restaurants are permitted in California.
Oh,
Basically,
okay.
They can solve issues like Sharon saying 100
Mhm.
miles to a grocery store. Why not just take one of those homes and open up a micro home restaurant? The chef can, it's working beautifully in California. There are no food safety violations. It solves all the issues. Washington state law passed the House, and their language even says it helps all these people, especially people recently released from prison. So I'll let you add anything else you want about that, but I just see it as a great solution to solve a lot of these issues, and it's a simple, immediate solution. I'm Chef Mike, a chef for 47 years in 39 states.
But that's definitely true, and I know there's also been laws around cottage food as well, and just emphasizing that worth of allowing folks to be able to make a living or supplement their income by utilizing their skills, either to grow food at home or to make food that they can sell, and lowering those barriers to entry is more just about emphasis of that as something that cities and counties can promote. But thank you. I'm sorry I forgot your name, but thank you for bringing that up.
I would love to know more about the micro home restaurants. We do have rural restaurants that are also providing groceries on their shelves, which is helpful. And we passed a home baking bill. Oregon has been slow on the cottage food laws. There was one that was passed for farmers market sellers to sell their own goods and be able to process at home. And then we passed a home baking bill that's been very effective and allows people, because we still have areas of the state that have no access to commercial bread products. And so that's been helpful here.
Are there any other questions that people have? And if not, I think we're going to go ahead and do the breakout rooms.
I just wanted to add a quick question, comment, food for thought, and relates to the Micos. I'm curious to know, just of people that are here, or if you hear of something later after today's talk, just about takes on implementation of them in rural regions, particularly in the fact that environmental health would need to go to homes in rural areas. So I do believe that's a concern in our area when we're talking about these places that are really far away from, like, for example, where I live, like we have a more urban area on the coast, but then there's some, really, rural outlying areas. So that is part of the piece of the kind of question and concern with implementation. So I'm curious to know if anybody has, comes across experiences with that. That's certainly information I'd be curious to hear more about.
I'm sorry, could you identify yourself too?
Oh, sorry. Minor detail. I'm sorry. My name is May Patino. I'm the coordinator for the Humboldt Food Policy Council. So we're up in far Northern California, and I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. You did
Been
it.
a
The
long
box
week.
did not light up, so I was a little confused. Thanks, May. Anybody else? Okay, I think we're ready to go to breakout rooms then. We are not expecting you all to report back, I said, on your breakout. We are going to have it may be great if people took notes. We have a Google Doc that we'll link to. And we're going to spend probably 20 minutes in the group, in the small group. And then at the end, we're going to just ask if you have any questions that you'd like the group to respond to. Again, that you maybe came out of your discussion, maybe questions you had when you came into this and you wanted to get some more clarification. Rachel and Karen are going to work their magic and getting the great breakout groups going.
Welcome back. I hope everyone enjoyed their conversations in a small group. We had set aside the last 10 minutes to open it up if you had any questions that were still coming up from your breakout room that you wanted to ask of the collective group, to take time to be able to do that now. Or if there were any insights from your conversation that were brought up, if you wanted to share them with the rest of the group so that we kind of build this collective knowledge about how to do community engagement in low density areas. So you're welcome to unmute yourselves or raise your hands. If there were any burning questions that came up, we'd love to hear them and see if there's any responses people would like to share, or if there's any highlights that came out of your conversations, please feel free to share them.
Quickly, I just put in the chat the Washington State language on their MECO bill. It might be quite interesting to see how explicit they are about the groups that they can help. So I'd love to hear any comment on that.
Thank you. Michael, will you put that in the chat one more time? Because I think it went to your breakout room and not to the whole group. Thank you. Did anyone have any lingering questions from their breakout group that they wanted to ask? Any insights or aha moments that came up that you want to share?
Does anyone want to update their home cooking laws in their state? I know 28 states are updating it, but I don't have any direct info.
Kansas needs to.
There you go. Debbie, are you the contact for Kansas?
Well, I certainly can be if I need to. I am working on them.
There's no questions and no highlights or aha moments. I want to turn it back over to our speakers, Dawn, Jared, and Sharon, to see if there are any final thoughts that you want to share with the group.
Jared, do you want to go first?
Find the notes. Sure, trying to find the notes for our meeting, but just excited to hear all the different things folks were doing. Multiple folks were using or utilizing SNAP benefits at farmers markets, or helping folks utilize those types of programs at farmers markets, or giving multiple or multiplying the incentives for those types of benefits. Also utilizing mobile markets and other means to help those who are transportationally challenged connect to good food. So just excited to take some ideas and hope other folks heard some ideas that they can take back to their municipalities for this event.
Thank you, Jared. So I wrote down a lot of different notes and insights. So I want to just thank the organizers, and also Sharon for some of her insight. And but I would say as challenging as things are or seem in our region, on the other fold of it is I am incredibly optimistic on what our region and our food system, the opportunities that are in front of us. And what I mean by that is that there is so much right now happening from a recreational environment and physical activity and parks and recreation grants and that are happening here in Southwestern Michigan and around our area. And I feel like that momentum, we have to look at that in the sense that we have that same opportunity in the food access and trying to better help this food system come along in a way that is best for all. And so I guess I leave you with more of my North Star and hope, and that even though the work is challenging and I feel like I'm on a lonely island sometimes, just continue to persevere, and together we can work through this. And just thank you for all your insights and sharing today.
So I have really enjoyed today. I love talking to people and finding out what's going on, and it's exciting to see how much community food system work is happening now versus when I started doing this work and we started doing the organizing. And I know it's going to be rewarding for the communities that it's being done, where it's being done. The one thing I'd say to everybody is you can't look from the outside to figure out what a community needs or wants with food systems work. You're not going to make it happen without people feeling invested in the work and feeling like they own it. And that starts with you taking it as much to the grassroots as you possibly can. And that could be the grassroots and taking your work where people are. So don't be afraid to join a church meeting or a church potluck or a 4-H club or a garden club or whatever it is. Think about what all those places are, and think about how you're going to connect to find out what their stake in the food system is and what they want to work on.
Double down on that. This pandemic has disconnected a lot of us, and I know myself when I was working in Boston, being able to talk to folks every single day and helped me learn so much about the community. So finding ways even during these times to connect with folks is really important.
A great point to end this conversation on, and just really wanted to say thank you to Jared, Dawn, and Sharon for being here, sharing your experiences, your thoughts, your challenges, and Sharon definitely for sharing all of the experience that you've had in engaging in rural communities. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for this conversation. We did record it, and so we'll be sharing out the recording afterward, as well as the sheet of tips and strategies that Sharon mentioned earlier. And we look forward to seeing you all again in another conversation in the future. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.